who was secretly Catholic, having to hide this to keep his job and perhaps even his life. Well, today I want to tell you about an English composer by the name of William Byrd. William was born around 1540. There's no actual document showing when he was born, and different documents show different things, but let's say 1540 because that's what the consensus is. He was born into a relatively wealthy family of merchants. They were very musical. He had 2 brothers and 4 sisters. Not a ton of information, but it appears that he trained as a choir boy at Chapel Royal under Thomas Tallis, who he becomes his musical mentor, and later they'll work together. And he also there learned, he learned harmony. He understood counterparts. He understood what we call polyphony. He learned about sacred music, Latin music, and he also learned how to play organ. In his early 20s, he became a respected organist and composer, and that's what he did. Now, his brothers both became merchants, but he did not. He went full-time into music. In 1572, he was appointed a gentleman of the Royal Chapel, and this is great because this is like job security, and it also puts him directly in service under Elizabeth I. Somewhere before that, in the 1560s, he gets married. He marries Juliana. They end up having at least 7 kids, and there is no scandal. They have a quiet, loving, happy life together. Now, during this time, there was a bit of a conflict in England, both politically and also religiously, and the England would vacillate between being Catholic and Protestant, depending on who was on the throne. It appears that he was raised in a Protestant family, and that is great because he was working under Queen Elizabeth I, and she was Protestant. They had broken with the Roman Catholic Church again, and it was not safe to do so. So great for him. He gets married. His wife is not isn't going to church. It's written up, and he starts questioning his faith and really looking into what do I believe and why do I believe it, and he converts to Catholicism in secret. This is dangerous. He's not just like a side guy. He is working directly under the Queen. This could lose him his job. It could cost him fines. It could put him in jail. It could actually even sentence him to death if he's not careful. Some of the information I have found states that he was in secret the whole time, and Queen Elizabeth I never knew. This seems highly unlikely. He was refusing to go to church. He was written up. He and his wife were noted, hey, you guys are bad people. It wasn't that he was loudly and boldly Catholic. That's definitely not true. But it had been difficult for him to do his job and not be noticed because he's not going to the Protestant church services. But the Queen loved his music. And it appears that he was also just a nice man. So I think she just liked him. And so somehow he ended up under her protection this way. So he keeps on composing, and he composes all kinds of different genres. Yes, he composes masses, but he also composes madrigals and songs. He does keyboard music. He does write Anglican church music, even though he's not participating in it himself. Any kind of music that comes out of this time period, mid-16th, late 16th century, he's written it. Also, in 1575, he makes a great business decision. Of course, he comes from a business family. He and his mentor, Thomas Tallis, they start publishing music. And they were granted royal monopoly on printing music in England. So anyone that wanted print music had to go through their printing press. And think about it, they had exclusive rights to all music in England. And he made great profits on this from publishing. And his music spread widely across England. And think about how much the Queen must have really trusted him and appreciated him to give this to give monopoly of printing. Of course, besides the business, he continues to compose, and he is known as one of the greatest English composers, really. And in a way, this having like dual citizenship of faith, being Catholic but working under a non-Catholic, he kind of bridged the music between the two because they did have distinct different music going on. His Anglican anthems and Latin motets, he would kind of fuse them and create something new. He was a pioneer in the keyboard consort works. He just did so much for the music at the time and everyone that came after him. He composed over 470 works, and so he had a lot of his own works to publish, of course. In his later years, he and his wife moved to Essex, away from London, surrounded by Catholic families, loving families, where he felt comfortable and safe. Despite ongoing dangers, he lived quietly, protected by his reputation and, of course, his connections. He died peacefully in his early 80s, we think 83, in the year 1623, which is really old for this time. He was buried locally, which is what he wanted. And although England was not Catholic at the time or anything, he was loved and remembered with great respect. He leaves a great legacy. He was one of the greatest composers of the English Renaissance, master of both Catholic and Anglican traditions, a pioneer in music publishing. But he was also proof that art could survive political and religious conflict. Go and listen to something by William Byrd.